Спасибо, Андрей. Спасибо, коллеги.
Andre, thank you. Thank you, distinguished colleagues. I'd like to start with the fact that discussions regarding ethics and other social aspects of AI are very contradictive, are very controversial, because this entire domain could be described as very ambiguous, specifically in terms of ontology. Human sciences, because the ontological basis for entire domain is only being formed. There are over 100 definitions for AI in different expert communities. Another sign of ontological ambiguity is the fact that UNESCO recommendations about UNESCO ethics completely lack precise definition of AI. And they, by the way, strictly mention that AI definition is something that is constantly changing. Therefore, that gives a certain flexibility. But on the contrary, we see many attempts to rewrite a regulatory framework for IT. And now we have AI. That's why lots of norms should be, well, allegedly everything has to be rewritten now. Of course, tension is high because AI has rooted in many domains of business and industries. And there is a geopolitical competition for AI domination. I would like to mostly focus on three aspects of the discussion. AI, is it a subject or an object of law? What's the legal standing there? Because specifically, due to psychological aspects and the general intent of human beings to assign anthropomorphic features to anything around them, people assign these anthropomorphic features to the AI. But it is a set of hardware and software. And from the point of view of most experts, that is not a subject of law, that is an object of law. Also, there is a strong trend, again, widely considered in the international community, is to assign AI with certain legal standing as a subject of law, but so far UNESCO still prefers to recommend consider AI as an object of law but not subject. There's also an issue of global monitoring and surveillance. That has been mentioned a lot today. Mr. Kuleshov mentioned about the attempts to create some sort of organization, global organization with the support and patronage of United Nations. That organization would therefore kind of monitor the situation with AI in many domains. On the one hand, that's probably a promising idea, and I believe the effort to synchronize effort in terms of AI monitoring is a valid idea. But we should also consider digital sovereignty and independence of nations. So the question is, who's going to be inspector?
It's not something that is reflected in any document. And therefore, we pay a great deal of attention to these initiatives. And that is a natural segue to the digital sovereignty issue, the third issue. If we look at the proposals that have been pushed at a number of international fora in respect of monitoring the ethics of using AI and the use of AI for military purposes, that's where you see interest in many countries impacted, and some of the proposals, they undermine the idea of digital sovereignty and sovereignty of countries as such. Therefore, you need to pay a lot of attention and focus on remembering that these are good intentions, but they need to be implemented voluntarily, not to undermine the concept, the baseline concept of country sovereignty, including sovereignty in the digital space. I would also like to highlight some of the key recognized principles of AI regulation suggested by UNESCO, and they are well aligned with the principles that are included in other regulatory documents suggested by international organizations. That are the principles of transparency and explainability. And despite the discussion that was quite polar, the transparency and explainability discussion, most experts agree that at least the underlying logic of the AI architecture needs to be transparent and explainable. Yes, there are issues that are associated with the principles of operation of AI systems, but the overall architecture and decision-making logic, they have to be transparent and explainable. And hopefully it's something that is going to be achieved within a number of years. Human-centric nature is another approach, and there are a number of issues there. A human being may be too slow to make a decision with regard to systems performance that is AI-based. But in these cases, we may say that a human being should have access to the underlying architecture and be able to switch the AI system. And finally, it's sustainability, robustness, and reliability. That is crucial because many systems that are AI-based are kind of immature in terms of their degree of implementation. There was a series of important accidents that took place at a number of large facilities. That suggested that we need to really pay close attention to the issues of sustainability and reliability, and that completes